Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations, you have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up, and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Hello, everybody. This is the MLBeers podcast with your hosts Andrew Sherman and Philip Cohen. Philip, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. Enjoying Labor Day off, paid day. How are you doing?
I am doing pretty well. Even though I'm doing pretty well, I've realized that the Springfield Cardinals will not be making it to the playoffs on Friday, which is a little bit sad. But then again, it's been a good year for for working with the Springfield Cardinals and all that stuff.
Well, that's good. It kind of sucks that you don't get to work any playoff games, though.
Yeah, which is something that I really wanted to do, but then again, school just started. I feel like my other job really needs me back, so it's probably a good thing. But I mean, who doesn't love playoff baseball? So I'm conflicted, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but at least your schedule will be a little bit more free. Just one job now in school.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this job too, even though we have fun with it, it's kind of a job.
Yeah, but I guess 3 jobs at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, 3, had 4. But anyway, how's Labor Day? How's your Labor Day weekend?
Labor Day weekend was really good. Had a barbecue yesterday. We were kind of talking about it before we got on air.
Mm-hmm.
I ate this hot sauce. It was a Carolina Reaper, and if you haven't looked it up, some of these peppers can reach up to like 2.5 million on the Scoville unit scale. And it just to give you a little bit of a description, jalapenos are only 15,000.
I never knew. I've heard of the scale, and I know you brought it up. It was like 2.5 million for the Carolina Reaper, but now looking at just a normal jalapeno to a Carolina Reaper, is just very, very like jalapenos are just you should just eat them, without problem.
Yeah, and that's what we made. I did some ribs and we did some hot wings. And we did 2 of the wings in that Carolina Reaper sauce, and it's called Reaper Acha, and it was the hottest thing I've ever ate.
Was it a mixture of Carolina Reapers with sriracha?
I don't know. I don't know. I just know it was extreme. It was just extremely hot. And it's not one of those sauces that are just hot to be hot. It had good flavor and everything to it, but it was insane.
Oh, I bet. I mean, especially being 2.5 million on the Scoville scale.
My nose was running, eyes watering, and yeah, it was good, but man, you can only maybe eat one of those wings, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds delicious, even though it's probably hot as hell.
It was really good. Like I said, the sauce and everything was really good because I did the wings on the grill with some charcoal and hickory wood. So
nice.
The wings had a nice smoky flavor to it.
Nice.
And it was really good. But man, that heat is just something else. I had to call my stepdad afterwards and be like, "Look, I just ate this," and he's like, "Well, why are you two so stupid?"
all I can do is just, give you shrugs. That's
Yeah.
probably that's probably what you gave him. Like, eh,
Eh,
eh.
I wanted to try it.
Yeah, exactly.
Wanted to try it. You got to try, most everything at least once.
Yeah, exactly. And for my weekend, trying everything once in a lifetime, I guess, nothing happened. I did not do anything for Labor Day weekend. Nothing at all. I just mowed. I did my normal chores around the house. And
Right
I know that it's very anticlimactic from what happened with you, but you got to get stuff around the house, You can have you work hard, you play hard. That's what I like.
And then on Saturday, mother-in-law came down and she watched the kids while we were at work. And Jess and I keep the house clean,
Mm-hmm.
but there's something about a way a mom cleans the house. It just makes our cleaning look terrible.
I could see that.
Because we came home, she cleaned our bathroom, living room, dining room, and our kitchen. And I don't think it's ever looked that clean before.
Oh man, that happens. I mean, somebody knows how to clean better than anybody else.
I'm like, what did you do? How?
Well, did you ask her for the sage advice about that?
No, but I think she left a hint because she left her whole cleaning supplies at our house.
Could I guess one cleaning supply in that
Yes.
basket? Did she have Totally Awesome in that basket?
No, she uses a mixture of bleach and vinegar.
That was kind of the obvious for me because my mom uses vinegar for almost everything. I
didn't know vinegar was a cleaning solution until I started dating Jess.
Yeah, vinegar, if you drink coffee, the best way of cleaning your coffee maker is using vinegar.
Just run vinegar through it?
Run vinegar through it, I believe, twice, and then run like 4 or 5 times with water. So you don't have that vinegar taste.
So you don't have a terrible vinegar taste?
Yeah, but it does really well. And and it with the heat of the vinegar, with the tubing and everything else, it kind of unclogs the tubing. So how I notice is when I try to make 8 cups of coffee, it somehow goes to either 7 or 6, with the lines and stuff. So then I cleaned it out, and then I tried to do it again, and then it was 8 again. So it really does do wonders. What if you clean it out once a month or so?
Okay. Yeah, see, Jess and I have this coffee machine. We do iced coffee, and it makes iced coffee.
You all and your iced coffee.
It's so much better.
Well, because it's cooler. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Doesn't
I can
burn
just drink
your
it
tongue.
right away. I don't have to wait for it.
Yeah, exactly. My brother likes cooled coffee, and I know that doesn't sound like ice. It sounds like a really bad version of iced coffee. But what he does is he just gets coffee and then puts ice in it.
Oh, yeah. No, I get the Girl Scout Thin Mint Creamer.
Ooh, going fancy on me now.
Yeah. I don't put any extra sugar or anything in there. I just put a little dash of that in there, and it's good to go.
Nice. My creamer is usually either cheap French vanilla, or if I'm feeling fancy, the non-alcoholic Bailey's Irish Cream. And that's usually on my weekdays. I need to buy a new bottle of alcoholic Bailey's for the weekend.
Yeah.
But you know what I realized out of all of this? It took us till Monday of the next week to get this podcast up. And if you remember correctly, of the 25th milestone episode, we've talked about how we never skipped a week. And technically we did, but we didn't give up on it. There was, a couple of things restricting us. I was busy, you were busy, and so that's why we haven't got this one out until today, and that's why it's just been a very long week because we're just we were ready to go. I was ready to go Tuesday. You were ready to go. And then things just happened. Cardinals got in the way for me. You had your kids. And I think if I remember correctly, you had a little spell of something from your kids, correct?
Yeah, the little demons brought something. They started back at school 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they, when kids go to school, they just bring home all the germs. And I don't know what I got or what it was, but it was like a day and another half a day of just constant getting sick.
That sounds so horrible.
Like, I could go graphic, but just imagine you're just a good old stomach virus. And that's what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you brought up to me, plus the graphic details, which is pretty bad. And I'm glad, of course, everybody's happy that you're feeling better. And,
But that is one thing I do like about stomach viruses. They only last like a day or two, and then you're like, oh shit, I feel great.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cleanser in a way.
Yeah. A very shitty one, but
exactly. But you know what? Enough of that. Let's get to
some baseball.
Yes, we've had a long week. We have opinions ready to go for this podcast. Of course, we're going to be talking about the last month of baseball. So, 2 wild card races going down to the wire. We have the American League that is it's always been stacked in the American League for some odd reason these past few years for the wild card. But it just is even bigger. And then you have the NL wild card, which we thought 2 months ago, right after the second half just started, that it was completely over. But it isn't.
But the Rockies are faltering a little bit.
The Rockies have faltered. The Arizona Diamondbacks have faltered. But the past 2 weeks, they're on a 10-game winning streak, which is
so that Arizona's not fucking around no more.
Yeah, exactly. And which means, since it's mostly divisional games, the Dodgers have kind of slipped back a little bit. I don't think they're going to reach that 116-game plateau, but I think it's going to be crazy. It's going to be exciting. But first, we always have to talk about what's been going on in the news. We've had 2 big trades before the waiver trade deadline was finished, I guess, if that would be the correct way of saying it. Mike Leake from the St. Louis Cardinals is now a Seattle Mariner, and they got him with a minor leaguer. He's a shortstop. He's in Single-A, and the Mariners got $750,000 allocated to their international free agency.
So essentially, the Mariners agreed to take on Mike Leake's contract.
Yep.
They gave up a low-level prospect, and then they can spend a little bit more on international free agents.
Yep. It is.
The Cardinals.
Yeah, go ahead.
Made more room in the payroll.
Yes, most definitely. And it says right here that he's still under contract. The Mariners have to pay $2.5 million left for this year, and then the whole contract is still there. $73 million through 2020. They have a $5 million payout in 2021, which is really good. How do I look at this? As a Cardinal fan, it's good. And the reason why Mike Leake hasn't done well, and I think the trade was good for both teams, because I know the Mariners are still in the hunt, and even though the Cardinals are still in the hunt, when you have two great minor leaguers with Luke Weaver and Jack Flaherty, which I'll talk
That's
about.
what I was going to say. Is
that guy in a moment.
It's going to clear room for them.
It's going to clear room for them, and especially, with how Mike Leake has been, him leaving, which in his first start actually he won the game. I think it's just a good trade overall. Maybe a little bit too much on the international bonus pool, which is the free agency money. But for me, it's still a good trade overall.
Yeah, and the Mariners with
go ahead.
Paxton and Felix Hernandez hurt. This kind of helps them at least stay relevant until those two guys get back.
Mm-hmm.
And again, just going back to the Cardinals, it just clears up payroll room and puts spots in rotation for Flaherty and Weaver.
Exactly. And then another trade has happened this week, which was
kind of bound to happen at some point. It almost happened before the 31st deadline.
Yeah, yes, you are right. And then it was kind of weird how it was all going down. We're talking about Justin Verlander, getting traded to the Astros, and how that all went down. It was like Justin Verlander, the Tigers got the proposal from the Astros, and then I guess Justin Verlander saw it, or something happened in between where somehow they declined the offer, but then a couple minutes later it was confirmed that Justin Verlander was an Astro, which was just really weird. If you read on the Twitter feeds or through MLB trade rumors, it kind of goes down a little bit how it was all weird and how it went down. So anyway, the Astros, they get Justin Verlander, of course. What do the Tigers get? They get Franklin Perez, Daz Cameron, and Jake Rogers in the deal, which are all minor league guys. And also, Houston will receive $16 million from Detroit to cover a portion of Verlander's remaining salary, which is great. So, another thing that, even though it's moving money, it's kind of like the same thing with, with the Cardinals situation. They're moving money around, try to make sure that their payroll isn't sky high, and they did it, with somewhat relatively ease. Getting Justin Verlander onto a team that's ready to contend for a title, multiple titles possibly. And the Detroit Tigers are officially saying we are in a rebuild.
Which is about time.
Yeah, especially ever since the collapse in 2012 World Series, if I'm correct. Or is it 2010?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, 2012.
Wait, I think it was 10.
No, it was 12. It was 12.
Was
because
it? Okay.
10 was the Texas Rangers.
Yes.
And 12 was
Yep.
the Tigers, which they were swept, which is still odd, even though they had a kind of somewhat of a better team. But
yeah, no, the Verlander's going to help Houston because Houston has McCullers.
Houston has
on
Lance
DL.
McCullers on the DL, and Michael Feliz, which he's a relief pitcher.
He's on rehab assignment right now.
They're both on rehab assignments. But Dallas Keuchel hasn't been doing much. One of the games that Houston had to play in Tampa because of Hurricane Harvey, which we of course send our condolences out to the city of Houston and the state of Texas in their time of need. Dallas Keuchel wasn't doing well in that game. I think he gave up. I believe he gave up like 4 runs within 4 or 5 innings.
And Verlander hasn't been pitching spectacular this year either.
Mm-hmm.
So, they add. I guess you can argue that they add a guy that is going to be pitching anywhere between like a 3.10 to 4 ERA, but he has the quote unquote intangible playoff experience.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And hey, playoff experience is what you need.
It's a thing.
I mean, definitely look again. We're always going to go back to one of our teams. Look at the difference between the 2014 Kansas City Royals to the 2015 Kansas City Royals. And you can definitely tell that there was a different team when you compare the two World Series teams together. Of course, the
2014 run up until the World Series was insane, though.
Yeah, because they could not be stopped. They could not be stopped, which is something I think was the first time ever that has happened in the playoffs, which is so weird. And of course they played against better teams. They played against a Los Angeles Angels team that I thought was going to be really, I thought that they were going to at least give them a run. And then they played the Orioles, which I thought they were going to give them a run too, but swept them all the way.
Yep. And then it came down to the Alex Gordon and Salvador Perez.
Mm-hmm.
Alex Gordon was on third base. The game could have been tied, but Bumgarner just freaking shut it down.
He threw it inside. That's what you got to do. Threw it inside. Salvi got underneath it. Pop up on the
That's
third
exactly
base
what
side.
he wanted.
Yep.
Speaking of the Royals, Danny Duffy he is allegedly has a DUI. I say allegedly because he's not been charged yet.
Okay. He's not been formally charged, but which is
formally charged. He was arrested.
Yes. And it was kind of an interesting I guess thing about it, because he wasn't with the team when they were on their road trip, and he's also on the DL too. Let's get that right. So that's the kind of the reason.
He's on the 10-day DL.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the 23rd of August. And so that Saturday he was supposed to start, didn't start. He got sent back to Kansas City and had an MRI. This is when they were playing the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Had an MRI, showed no structural damage, ligament damage, just sore elbow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was Saturday night. His arrest was on Sunday evening at 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not saying what influence he was under.
I think this has to go kind of, I don't know if it was, like you said, don't know if it was alcohol or medical related with, medicine and all that stuff.
Was it, we could speculate that, he got put on the DL, his elbow was sore, and let's say they gave him a certain type of pain med, and he took it, it affected his body this way, and he passed out in the drive-thru of Burger King.
And it happens. I mean, I guess it happens all the time, to be honest with you.
And I'm sure whatever doctor gave that to him, team doctor gave that to him, like, look, don't drive when you take these. So he's still at fault. This is like us trying to say, oh, he's not at fault or anything like that. But the situation with him going on the DL and then the next day getting this arrest charge, it's just kind of weird. And even in the press conference they had, they didn't say what influence it was.
Yeah, which in the press conference was also kind of weird by Dayton Moore, how he was talking about not only like drinking and driving, all these like other abuses, but also the most poignant one that everybody fell in love with, I guess, was the whole pornography. Pornography leads to domestic abuse or something like that. Yeah. Apparently. So I guess that's kind of the funny thing out of all of this. I mean, it's still a serious offense if he does get charged. I mean, even just doing it is pretty serious. I mean, hell, when we even talk about, when we talk about the beers, we're like, we don't condone drinking and driving, it's...
Yeah. Just don't.
Yeah, just don't. It's cost you a lot of money just to get out of it. I don't have any experience. And so it's just like, it's always something that just have somebody that's a DD, or just have a taxi waiting for you, call Lyft, call Uber, whatever. Just get yourself home. Just be safe, or just drink at home. That's even better, because you can get yourself a 6-pack that will cost at least 1.5 beers at a bar. So that's even better.
But speaking of doing the right thing, what about Giancarlo Stanton hitting 50 home runs already?
Over 50 home runs. I believe he's at 52 at the moment. I have not checked the number.
Do you think he could get to Barry Bonds level?
Barry Bonds level, probably not. But if we're thinking, if he can get 60, like McGuire's number,
I bet he could get 60.
Yeah, McGuire's number, easily. Because he has a whole month left. He has 30 games, 29 to 30 games, to just get 10 home runs. And there's going to be opportunities where he's going to get those home runs.
Oh, yeah.
So I do not, it was the first time since
I don't think he'll hit 63. I don't think he'll get to Roger Maris level this year.
Okay, I could see that. Because he would have to, there has to be moments where he does, he has multiple home run games.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's not going to hit a home run every single game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, essentially that's what we'd have to do to get to Barry Bond level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you're right. I don't think he'll ever get to Barry Bond level with this run. Roger Maris, Mark McGwire, there is a possibility, but just getting over 60 is just a remarkable feat. And since they do drug testing,
all of it at a time.
Yeah, the anonymous drug testing. It seems like right now he's in the clear and he won't have that quote-unquote asterisk.
Exactly. So that's going to be a fun thing to watch for the end of the season, at least for Marlins fans.
Yeah, and especially since they are now in the race, which is still odd to me.
Yeah.
But of course we'll get to that later. But of course we got to talk about, we're getting into the races, and you got to talk about injuries. And injuries will make or break a team. And, just going down the list here for the American League, we have David Price. He's out. He's on the 10-day DL. Then you look at the Yankees, Clint Frazier, Luis Cessna's. Clint Frazier on the 10-day. Luis Cessa is out for the season. And Garrett Cooper is on rehab assignment, unless some things have changed from now since yesterday, which I don't think there has been. J.J. Hardy's on a rehab assignment. Craig Gentry for the Baltimore Orioles on 10-day. Tampa Bay Rays only have one guy, Jacob Faria, on the 10-day. The Cleveland Indians, which seems like they're kind of the team that always gets injured around this time of the year. Jason Kipnis, Michael Brantley are out for 10 days. Danny Salazar, 10 days. Andrew Miller, 10 days. 4 key guys that are part of this team are injured. And it seems like it happens always around this time this year. The Minnesota Twins, Jason Castro, is on the 7-day with a concussion. Miguel Sano on the 10-day. Robbie Grossman, 10-day. Dietrich Inns, Alberto Jimenez, Mejia. See, I can't adjust when I'm talking and try to talk in Spanish. And Hector Santiago on the rehab.
And the
side.
Scary thing for the Twins is they're making a good run, and Miguel Sano has kind of been there all year, really producing for them.
And, another thing is they're making a good run without him at the moment.
Yep. Except they did just lose. Well, I'll get into it.
Yeah.
I'll get into it later.
We'll get into it. Don't worry. I know what you're going to say. And, of course, to the Royals, we already talked about Danny Duffy being on the 10-day, Joaquim Soria on the 10-day.
And both of those guys should be coming back this week.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these guys will be starting to come back this week or within the next time we do a podcast within the next 2 weeks. Then we have for the Houston Astros, Lance McCullers, Michael Feliz on rehab assignment. Evan Gattis is probably the one notable guy for the Astros that's on the 10-day DL. The Los Angeles Angels, UNL Escobar is on the rehab assignment, but starting pitcher Alex Meyer is on the 10-day. Bud Norris is on the 10-day. Houston Street on the 60, which just happened, just last month, 2 months now, but still a big part of that bullpen. And then Matt Shoemaker and Nick Trapino are out for the season. For the Seattle Mariners, we already kind of touched it with Felix Hernandez being out and James Paxton out for 10 days, both of them. Hishi Iwakuma is on the 60-day, which happened all the way in May, but it's still kind of, important because of how Mike Leake will be in the rotation. He's kind of in for him. David Phelps, relief pitcher, he's on the 10-day. And Drew Smiley is out for the season. And for the Texas Rangers to round up the American League disabled list, Matt Bush and Keon Kila, if I'm saying that correctly, both relief pitchers are on the 10-day DL. And now we got to go to the National League real quick. For the Nationals, Bryce Harper, Stephen Drew, Coda Glover is on the 60-day. Stephen Drew's on the 60-day. Bryce Harper on the 10-day. And Joe Ross, starting pitcher, is out for the season. For the Miami Marlins, third baseman Martin Prado on the 10-day. And Yi Chin and Justin Bohr are on rehab assignments. And JT Riddle and Edison Volquez are out for the season. For the Chicago Cubs, a team that has been playing, subpar compared to last year, doesn't really help that Wilson Contreras is out for the 10-day and Addison Russell are out for the 10-day. I know Javier Baez had a little knock on the head yesterday, and he was out for the rest of the game, but it seems like he's in the lineup for today. For the Milwaukee Brewers, Jet Bandy is on rehab assignment. For the St. Louis Cardinals, Jed Jerko's on the 10 days. Adam Wainwright on the 10-day. Trevor Rosenthal is out for the season with Tommy John surgery. So that's going to hinder the bullpen for the St. Louis Cardinals. As for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Scott Kazmir and Brandon McCarthy are on rehab assignment now. Cody Bellinger and Clayton Kershaw just made their debuts last week. I believe Thursday was Bellinger, Friday was Clayton Kershaw. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, we have catcher Jeff Mathis on the 10-day, Nick Ahmed on the 60-day, and utility Chris Owings on the 60-day too. Then for the last team, the Colorado Rockies, we have Ryan Hannigan on the 10-day, and Tyler Anderson is on the rehab. So that is it for the DL. And I know that was kind of quick, but when you look at everything that's, through MLB trade rumors, roster resource, it can kind of get confusing, but, just seeing the main guys right in the DL may hinder some of the teams going forward, trying to get into the playoff push. So that kind of leads to the next thing. If guys are injured, who are they going to call up? And we're going to talk about the AL right now when it comes to the whole thing. So, Phil, who do you have for the call-ups? We talked about how these multiple teams with the Angels, the Mariners have a really big, sizable disabled list. The Minnesota Twins. Who are these guys going to come in for those teams and the other teams that are part of the American League?
Well, right now I'm just going to look at the kind of like the playoff contending teams. Mostly it's going to be those wild card teams. So like the Yankees, Twins, Angels, Orioles, Mariners, and Royals.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the Yankees, and a little caveat here, most of these teams haven't made their full September call-ups yet because they're waiting for the AAA season to be over.
Yeah, well, not only AAA, but AA season.
Yep.
Waiting
for those two seasons to be over. Mm-hmm. And this is the time where they can call up people on the 40-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not the guys that aren't on the 40-man roster, they're either going to have to transfer guys to the 60-day DL or designate them for assignment.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of these teams, like the Mariners, who don't have any room on their 40-man roster, are kind of waiting for certain seasons to get over to make their call-ups.
Mm-hmm. And especially, there's another thing added to this also. You can since it is a 40-man active roster, which we kind of learned with Out of the Park baseball, they don't necessarily have to be on the 40-man the actual 40-man roster that you kind of, the secondary roster as they call it. Not necessarily have that, because I've messed with, with my team, the St. Louis Cardinals and the Minnesota Twins online, and you can move players into the 40-man primary roster, but they don't have to be in the secondary roster. From my take, from doing it, but I could be wrong. But go right on ahead. So you were talking about the Yankees.
So the Yankees right now have called up Eric Kratz. He's a backup catcher. Most likely he was called up because Sanchez and Romine will be going on suspension for a couple games for their fight with the Tigers. And they called up a prospect righty out of the bullpen, Ben Heller, and then Jordan Montgomery's back with the team. But he's going to be out from roster resource. It looks like he's going to be used out of the bullpen rather than the rotation. And then I'm just going down the teams in order of their wild card standings right now. So the Twins, they called up Nick Turley, lefty out of the bullpen, and Buddy Boshers. Again, both of those guys aren't necessarily top prospects. These are guys that have major league experience but have been down in AAA. And then the only guy that's getting called up that doesn't have major league experience is Nico Goodrum, utility player. He was hitting 263 in AAA. And the Angels, I'm really not including their call-ups because they don't really have any two guys that are notable, but I wanted to talk about what trades they did. They went out and got second baseman Brandon Phillips and outfielder Justin Upton.
Two really big trades. Another trade with the Detroit Tigers. I know we didn't bring it up earlier in the show, but I knew you were going to bring it up. We talked about it, and I knew you were going to bring it up during the call-up spot. So,
yeah. So with the Angels doing that, they're kind of securing their outfield a little bit and getting. Off the top of my head, I don't know how Brandon Phillips was hitting this season, but defensively at second base, you're getting a more and with Escobar being hurt, I think that led a lot to that being done.
And also, just a real quick take, it's going to be a nice middle infield with Brandon Phillips kind of resurging, with the Braves and having Adrenaline Simmons at shortstop. So that's going to be a nice 1-2 combo to start those double plays.
And then going to the Orioles, they called up their top catching prospect with Chance Sisco, and then they recalled Joey Rickard, and then they did have to make a 40-man roster move to get bullpen Richard Rodriguez.
Ricky Rodrigo, I like that.
And then the Mariners called up Margama. M-A-R-G-A-M-A.
M-A-R-J.
A-M-A.
I would have to see the spelling on this. So I will M-A-R-J-R?
M-A-R-J.
J, yes.
A-M-A.
A-M-A. I would say Margama.
Right? It didn't sound right.
I'd go with Margama, and I'm pretty sure Well, let's take a quick glance at his baseball reference.
Well, while you're doing that,
yeah,
they also recalled.
It is Margama.
Margama?
Yeah, that is the pronunciation.
Okay. They called up Mike Margama and Gordon Beckham. And again, the Mariners were kind of that team that didn't have a lot of room on their 40-man roster. So they're kind of waiting for AAA season, AA season to be over. And then most teams do this. They do September call-ups in waves. September 1st and 2nd, they'll call up 3-4 guys. And then by the end of this week, you'll see a full dugout and a full bullpen. And then finally kind of rounded out, the Royals recalled Raul Mondesi, and if you all don't remember, he started the season at second base for them and was hitting like .97 and sent him down. And then he ended up actually having a full season because he's never had a full season in any of his minor league teams. And you can kind of argue he didn't quite have a full season in AAA, but he was hitting over 300. They recalled Terrence Gore, probably the fastest guy in the league, and then Cam Gallagher.
Are you contesting that Terrence Gore is faster than Billy Hamilton?
Yes.
I would like to see that foot race.
They're both super fast, but Terrence Gore is just not a great hitter. He's an okay defender, but you put him on base, he's going to steal second and third base. I think in the league, he's only been caught 4 times.
Wow. That is pretty impressive.
Yeah. So then our that kind of rounds out like the top-ish September call-ups, but wait until the end of this week and you'll start seeing some of those like top prospects get called up. But even then, those guys aren't going to be getting a lot of at-bats.
Yeah, it's going to be like mostly probably 10 at-bats would be kind of like the peak.
Yeah, they're going to start 2 to 4 games, and they won't start those games until the last week of the season.
Yeah, and until everything is kind of, out of the clutter, would you say? So before we get into the teams, let's just go down the wild card standings real quick. Like you said, for the AL, we have the Yankees and the number 1 wild card spot at 73 and 63. Then we have the Minnesota Twins taking the second wild card spot with 71 and 65. Then below the line, we have the Baltimore Orioles and the Los Angeles Angels right behind the Minnesota Twins at a game and a half back with both 70 and 67 records. Then we have the Seattle Mariners at a 69 and 68 record, which is 2.5 games back from the Minnesota Twins. Then we have the Texas Rangers that have a perfect 68 and 68 record with 3 games back. Your Kansas City Royals are at a 67 and 68 record with 3.5 games back. And yes, that is a losing record, but anything close here, if they get hot, it doesn't matter. It could, they could win 10 games in a row.
And working that way up, I'll start from the bottom. The Royals did just take 2 or 3 from the Twins. So, they were 5.5 back, 1-2. Now they're only 3.5 back. And that's all and then they play the Twins again this weekend.
Yeah. And, if you look at the schedule real quick when I got it up, you bring up how they got to play the Twins, twice. They just played them this past weekend. Now they got to play them for this week. If you really look at it, if it wants to go to the actual month of September, they kind of have somewhat of they got 2 teams really, as a real close look. They have 2 teams that will kind of be the challengers. You have the Minnesota Twins, of course, like you brought up, and then next week they'll be in Cleveland. But then once you reach to the bottom half of this month, they got to play the 1 makeup game against the New York Yankees on the 25th, and then they're ending the season at home against the Diamondbacks, which is odd, but I mean that's how scheduling goes, right?
Yeah, but so what Kansas City needs to do is win the series against the Tigers tonight, and then win the series against the Twins on the weekend. It would be great if they rattled off like 10 wins in a row, but the way they're hitting right now, their last 14 days as a team, they're the worst hitters in the AL right now. Their average is a 232. Their WRC plus, this is as a team, is a 62. Striking out, not so much at 19.3% of the time, but their on base is a 274. Their OPS is a 620, and their BABIP is only a 269.
A 620 OPS?
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty crazy, and that's the last 14 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you really look at it, who's been really the best player, hitting wise for that team? It's Eric Hosmer. Right now he's hitting a 342, 444, and a 526 slash line with a 971 on base plus slugging. But of course, I mean, that's kind of hard to really say anything else because it's like it's not a small sample size. Don't get me wrong. You have 38 at-bats for Eric Hosmer. But then another guy that's, that has done really well is that trade that they did at the trade deadline, Melky Cabrera. 333 batting average with a 333 on-base percentage, slugging at a pure 500 with a on-base plus slugging of 833. His WRC plus is a 117, and I forgot to say Eric Hosmer's is a 163. And if you try to look at this through Fangraphs, I kind of have it set up to go by WAR, and I don't know why they consider Raul Mondesi or Cameron Gallagher much better with WAR by the WAR score, even though I do have minimum plate appearances at 0, so anybody can be on there. But it just seems like they need to kind of prioritize it a little bit, but that's just me. But a guy that really, two guys that really need to get out of this 14-day slump are Mike Moustakas and Salvador Perez. Mike Moustakas has a 147 batting average, 216, 235 slash line, and Salvador Perez a 143, 167, 171 slash line, which is odd to say that I would never see a Mendoza line of all three of those numbers at once. That is a rarity for me.
Yeah. And so, kind of looking at the other team, the Rangers, they're 3 games back. Their hitting is doing significantly better than the Royals. 257 average, 1.7 WAR. Their on base is a 339. Their OPS is a 783, and their WRC plus is a 102. And their batting average of balls in play is a 305. So looking at as a team, they're hitting well. Rangers are pitching well. They're right in the middle of with a even 7 K per 9. Their ERA is a 443. Their WAR is an 8.3. Their FIP is a 478, so it is a little high. But their last 10 games, they are 5-5.
Yeah, and that's kind of the difference maker, and you kind of brought up with their pitching and how, Martin Perez, he's done well for the last 14. He started 3 games. He went through 20 innings. He has a 2.25 ERA with a 2.78 FIP. His WHIP, though, I know we're kind of almost rhyming there with FIP and WHIP and ERAs, trying to start a really bad hip-hop song. His WHIP is a 1.4, which is which is really good. And then you got to go down to the next guy, Andrew Cashner, which he was kind of the last year he was really good with the Miami Marlins, which got him a contract with the Rangers. And out of the 14 days, he's started 2 games. He went 14 innings. He has an ERA of 3.21, a FIP of 3.13, so it's really tight-knit. And, of course, his WHIP is at a 0.79. And I do want to say, out of all this, he has a BABIP of 205, an opponent BABIP of 205, and an opponent batting average of 189, which is both of those are the lowest out of the starting pitching for the Texas Rangers. And then you got to think about this guy real quick, Nick Martinez. He doesn't really have some flashy numbers, but the reason why I kind of like this guy, he has a 975 strikeout per 9 with a really, really low walk per 9 of 1.5, and his WHIP is a 0.92. And on the hitting side, if you got to look, looking at the numbers, you have Robinson Chirinos. He is hitting right now a 371, 511, 675, 657 slash line with a OPS of 1.168. And you talked about how they are significantly better on the hitting side. If you look at the numbers, they have three guys that are over 1 point whatever on the OPS.
And when you have guys like that in your lineup, it just means that everything's clicking right now. And if their pitching can get under control, and depending on how the Twins react, because Brian Buxton's been kind of hurt, and Miguel Sano, and Twins don't have the greatest starting pitching right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the team I think that's a lot of the teams are chasing the Twins and not necessarily the Yankees.
Yeah. And you're kind of right, because if I remember correctly, getting the numbers back up real quick, the Yankees are two games above the Minnesota Twins in the wild card. And those guys that the top three guys, Chirinos, Adrian Beltre, and Joey Gallo, if you really look at those guys and their numbers, specifically their strikeout rate, Chirinos is under 15. Beltre is under 20. Joey Gallo is at 25, but then you compare him to their walk rates. Chirinos 17.8, Beltre's 14.3, Gallo 17.9, and then you just if you look at all the guys, there's only a couple here and there that are over the 25% mark, but also some of those numbers that they're producing. They have, Delano DeShields, the one guy that specifically that pops out, has a 13.6 strikeout rate, but has a 15.9 walk rate. And that's the difference maker. If you have those two numbers closely together, that will be the difference maker between getting into the playoffs and not getting into the playoffs. And the numbers correlate, the correlation with the numbers, that's why they're doing so good so far. And just real quick, the Texas Rangers schedule, if it will want to come up, darn you loading screens. Texas Rangers, they just recently played against the Angels this weekend, and I believe they took the series, especially with, I think Joey Gallo had a couple of good games, and how I know is because he's on my fantasy team. But yes, this past weekend, they took the series from the Angels, winning 2 out of 3. Then it kind of gets a little bit easier. They kind of get a little break. They face the Atlanta Braves for today till Wednesday. But then it gets down to the nitty-gritty. They face the Yankees at the end of this week, and then into next week they face two of their divisional foes, the Mariners and the Angels, two teams, we're going to be talking about sooner or later about the AL wild card. Is going to be a really, really difficult one. And then they got to face the Mariners again 2 weeks from now, and then they got to face the Astros one more time. And of course they play against the Athletics, but of course that's really kind of irrelevant in a way.
Yeah, so you brought up the Mariners. That's the next team we're going to talk about. They're 2.5 games back of the Minnesota Twins, and they've won the last 3. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, we mentioned Paxton and Hernandez has been hurt, but they're still getting decent starting pitching. They do have a 4.49 team ERA with a 4.81 FIP. Mm-hmm. And a 133 whip and a 7.4 WAR. They're striking out 7.69 per 9. Their BABIP is a 283. So they're getting good pitching. Not great, but good. And with the addition of Mike Leake, they might be able to get even better, especially when Hernandez and Paxton both come back.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at their hitting, they're only striking out 20.1% of the time. They do have that low average of a 249, but their OPS is a 744, their BABIP is a 287, and their WRC plus is a 101.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're just 1 point above that Mendoza line of WRC plus at 100. So as a team, these last 14 days, they don't have a high average, and they're not taking a lot of walks, but they're still winning ball games.
Yeah, and
So
like you
if
said, well, go ahead.
I was just say, they've won the last three, and they're not getting the best of hitting. But if they can maintain until Hernandez and Paxton get back, and they have a possibility to get a lot better.
Hmm. Exactly. And, you kind of brought up how they're not taking a lot of walks, and it's definitely showing with the Seattle Mariners. Looking at the K rates, like I brought up with the Texas Rangers, why the Texas Rangers are doing so hot is because they have the less of a margin between between their K rates and their walk rates. But when you look at the Seattle Mariners, it's a different story. The margin between those are significantly higher. Mike Zunino, even though he's the best hitter within the last 14 days with the Seattle Mariners, he has a 33.3 strikeout rate with a 12.8 walk rate. And I mean, again, like I said, he's doing well. And I mean, Robinson Cano is kind of the outlier out of all of this because he has a strikeout rate of 7.1 and a walk rate of 2.4. I don't know how you can go that significantly low of striking out. And of course, his on-base percentage is, just above average at a 381. But just like looking at this, they do have players that can hit. I mean, Mike Zunino had 13 hits, Robinson Cano 12, Yonder Alonso, which they got at the trade deadline, 10 hits, Mitch Haniger 13, Gene Segura 12, Kyle Seager 11. These guys can hit. There's multiple guys that are above 280, and especially a significant more in a small sample size that are above 300. And that's what's carrying this team. If you really look at the pitching, it's not the hottest. And I'm going to exclude Mike Leake's win because even though he did well, he has a 2.57 ERA and all that stuff. If you look at the multiple games started, you have Andrew Albers with 3 and Andrew Albers at 3, and then the guys that have 2 game starts, you have 4 guys. Erasmo Ramirez, Marco Gonzalez, Ariel Miranda, and Giovanni Gallardo, if I'm saying that correctly. Anyway, 3 of those guys, actually all of them, are above 3.5 ERA. And there's 3 of them that are above 5 ERA, especially Gonzalez, Miranda, and Gallardo. I'm going to have a tough day with that. Anyway, to make my point, it's just that you bring up Mike Leake has to be the difference maker. And out of the one game that he's been in, he has been. Out of the other guys, they really do need James Paxton and Felix Hernandez back. And just real quick, just shoring up their schedule. They did sweep the Athletics, but they got to play Toronto. They got to play the Astros today. Then they got to play the Angels. They got to play. The next few weeks is all going to be teams that are in the wild card or top of their division, and especially the Cleveland Indians, which will be later in the month, will kind of be the difference maker if they will make it into the playoffs or not. Are they going to have any breaks? There's only one series, and that's against the Athletics. And I think by the time that reaches, they'll either be propelled into the conversation or into the playoff conversation or not.
Yeah. And, moving on from them, you look at the AL East, it's the Baltimore Orioles, which at the beginning of the year, we kind of thought they would be this kind of team. Mm-hmm. And for a little bit, they were kind of faltering. And we didn't know really what was going on. And it's the same kind of story with them. It's their pitching.
I was really wondering when they were going to come into full stride because I believe they were my second wild card team. Yeah, they were the second wild card team in my picks. And I was like, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But now everything is coming together. So go right on ahead, Phil.
But what's just hurting them right now is their starting pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And, last 14 days, 481 ERA, 490 FIP, only 7.69 K per nine. Their BABIP is a 302. So just with those numbers right there, the WHIP is a 144. Just with those numbers right there, you can kind of tell the story of, of their last 10, they're 8-2. So if they're pitching that badly, we got to look and see what they're doing hitting wise. And right now, in the last 14 days, they're third in the AL. They're hitting with a 308 average, 347 on base, an 863 OPS, a 351 BABIP, and a 126 WRC plus. They're striking out 21.9% of the time and only taking a walk 5% of the time. But that's kind of, if you're not going to get one, you have to get the other. And that's kind of what they're doing right now. They're not getting the best pitching, but they're getting the best offense.
Yes, and I'm going to try to do a little bit of quick counting real quick. There are 8 players with this team on the batting side that are above 300. And of course, this is 14 days. This isn't a whole month, but it's still good enough, and that's the reason why they've been 8-2 for their last 10 games. And especially their guy that's been doing well for them is catcher Wellington Castillo. He has a 425, 452, and a 900 slash line, which equals to a 1.352 on base plus slugging. And it's always nice to get that 256 WRC plus. And there are 7 guys that have a WRC plus that is, significantly higher. Not in the median between 90 and 110. But Seth Smith, if I can speak. Seth Smith, he has a 118. Craig Gentry, before he went on the DL, 169. Trey Mancini, 137. Adam Jones, 164. Manny Machado, 135. Jonathan Scope, 161. And, of course, Wellington Castillo at 256. And you brought up earlier, about their pitching. And it's kind of, they do have a high ERA. And the reason why it's high, which is hilarious, I guess, in a sense, unless you're a Baltimore Orioles fan, then you'll just get pissed off, is that 3 of their best starting pitchers, Wade Miley, Kevin Gausman, and Dylan Bundy, have an ERA of 265, 0, and 180, respectively. But then
their bullpen is what's falling apart.
Then you got to look at, hold on one second, it's not only the bullpen is actually fine, it's the second half of that starting rotation. They've started with, I guess, kind of a quote-unquote 6-man rotation, or, a little bit of spot starting for some pitchers. Jeremy Hellickson, Chris Tillman, and Umbaldo Jimenez all have ERAs of 694, 868, and 1291, respectively. So that's where it's kind of the tale of two rotations in a way.
And, if you get to the playoffs, though, those 3 guys won't be starting for you.
Yeah, I mean, the closest guy will be Jeremy Hellickson. That might start, but that probably won't even happen either because of the revolution of the pitching rotations in the playoffs. But if and of course, when it comes to the bullpen's fine. I mean, some of the guys that have pitched multiple innings have ERAs lower than 3. I mean, Micah Givens and Richard Belier are probably the only guys that have multiple innings pitched but have an ERA over 3. But going to the Baltimore Orioles schedule, it's going to be a tough one. Of course, they got to face some divisional foes, which is kind of the theme of what's been going on. But they got to face the Yankees today and for this week. On the weekend, they got to face the Indians. Then they got to play the Blue Jays. They have if I am correct, a 10. I had to take a moment and count a 10-game road stand. which are facing against the Indians. The Blue Jays, which are, meddling, but I think they're which I think they are out of it. Then they got to face the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. But then once they get home, it's not easier either. They got to face the division-leading Red Sox, and then they got to face the Rays. And then to end out the season, they got to face the Pirates for 2 games, and then against divisional foe, the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah, so if the Orioles are going to do it, they might have one of the tougher roads to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Yankees don't want to lose any ground, and the Red Sox don't want to lose any ground to the Yankees on the division lead.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's up next? We're heading back out west with the Angels, and both of their hitting and pitching is just right in the middle of the road. Last 14 days hitting, they're 5th with a 2.69 ERA, a 780 OPS, 113 WRC plus, and a 306 BABIP. And then you turn around, look at their pitching. They're 6th in the last 14 days with a 8.21 K per 9, a 248 average, 287 BABIP, 417 ERA, and a 447 FIP.
Mm-hmm.
And their last 10 games, they are 5-5. So they're playing 500 baseball to pretty much maintain where they're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And with the additions of Justin Upton and Brandon Phillips, they might be able, depending on how the Twins play. And, of course, they got, Mike Trout.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Trout. So, essentially, they'll be able, if they can keep playing middle-of-the-road baseball and play a little bit better than 500 and get some losses from the Twins, they should be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's possible. And I'm going to start out with the scheduling. Instead of who's been the best player on the batting and the pitching side, I'm going to start with their schedule first. And right now they got a 3-game away in Oakland. Oakland is the hottest ticket right now if you want to go see playoff baseball, even though one team will probably be in the playoffs while you get the Oakland Athletics. They got to face Oakland right now. And then they have to go. Then they have a 3-game road stand against the Mariners. But during that time, after that 3-game road stand, they're home for 9 games and then back out for another 3 that are important. But that's 15 games right there that they're going to be playing against the Mariners, the Astros, the Rangers, the Indians, and the Astros again. And don't forget that they do get a nice cushy 4-game set in Chicago against the White Sox. But it's going to be kind of, they got to face the Mariners at the end of the season. So that might be the time where it might be make or break for the Los Angeles Angels. But why are the Angels, middle of the road, as you said? Of course, they have Mike Trout back. He's the best player at an 0.8 WAR. He has his slash line is a 333, 519, and a 538 with a 1.057 on base plus slugging. And then C.J. Cron has done really well, but there's really no guy to duplicate those numbers in a sense besides Albert Pujols to Mike Trout. Pujols right now has a 321, 367, and a 518 slash line with an 855 on base plus slugging. But then if you're talking about, then you brought up, okay, how's their trades doing? Justin Upton, the small sample size that he's had, compare with 11 at-bats to, Trout's 39 and Albert Pujols' 56, is that Justin Upton has a 455, 625, and a 545 slash line, and a nice cushy 1.17 on base plus slugging. And, you kind of brought up the whole thing with how the Angels pitching is not really doing well, and it actually kind of shows. I mean, Ricky Nolasco is probably the only guy in the is the only guy in the starting rotation that has an ERA under 5 with a 4.41 ERA. But everybody else, Andrew Heaney, Tyler Skaggs, Troy Schnebler, Parker Bidwell, all those guys have an ERA above 5, and even worse is Tyler Skaggs. But also what doesn't help either with just real quick is that Ricky Nolasco, Andrew Heaney, and Tyler Skaggs, guys that have 3 starts, have only pitched under 20 innings. Nolasco with a 16.1, Heaney with a 14.1, and Tyler Skaggs with a 12.1. So that, that's kind of, really it about the Angels. So they have really good, powerful offense, meddling rotation. Their bullpen's okay. It's just going to be up in the air from there on out.
Yeah. And, we go back to the team that's in that second wild card spot right now, and their pitching is worse than the Angels right now.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in with a team ERA with a 4.63, a FIP of a 4.74, a WHIP of a 1.38. They're walking 3 guys per 9. Their BABIP is a 297. Their opponent average is a 264, and their K per 9 is a 7.3.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hitting. This is the reason why they're in it. Last 14 days, they're second in the AL with an even 4 WAR.
Mm-hmm.
But their average is a 270. Their on base is a 352. Slugging is a 516. OPS is an 868, which is second highest. Their isolated power is a 245. BABIP is a 289, and their WRC plus is a 124. And they're only striking out 17.6% of the time, and they're walking 10.4% of the time.
And, really, if you...
And some of these numbers might be elevated from their 17-0 win against the Royals a couple days ago.
That's going to happen. There's always going to be, some some fluctuation with the numbers. I mean, especially, you talk about the Baltimore Orioles, how they had 3 guys that had ERAs under, 2.5, but then there was guys that had ERAs over 6. So that's how that's how they get that 4. And yeah, you're right about that. And we talked about it earlier, how they don't even have Miguel Sano back in the lineup yet. And I think with those numbers that you bring up, it's going to definitely help them cushion a lead. I mean, they face the Tampa Bay Rays, then they go back, then they face the Royals and Kaufman. Then next week they got 2 pretty much cupcake games, as they say in football, with the San Diego Padres and the Toronto Blue Jays. Then they face the Yankees, and then another cupcake series with the Detroit Tigers. And then the Cleveland Indians are their last big team that they have to face, and then they end the season against the Detroit Tigers. So it's kind of, they face the big competition, then they get a nice break, then face big competition, break, big competition, then break. And that's going to help them cushion a position, maybe to lock the second or first spot, depending on what happens to the other team, the New York Yankees.
Yeah, and the Yankees right now, their hitting is sixth best in the AL the last 14 days. They have a 270 average, 345 on base, 438 slugging, 783 OPS, and a 301 BABIP with a 108 WRC plus, and they're striking out 18.3% of the time. And you go around, and it's kind of the opposite of the Twins. Yankees have really good pitching right now. 3rd in the AL the last 14 days with a 9.55 K per 9, a 229 average, 282 BABIP, a 74.1% left on base. This is the first team that we've talked about that has a sub-4 ERA as a team, and there's a 379 and a 390 FIP and a 120 and 1.23 WHIP.
And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's just they have middle of the road hitting right now, but they have top tier pitching. So it makes sense of why they're able to maintain their top spot at the wild card, even though their last 10 they're 5-5.
Yeah, and it's always weird. The offense gets you, the offense gets you to the playoffs, but really the teams that win the World Series have phenomenal pitching, even though offense, there's, offensive showcase around, during the playoffs. And, comparing between the Twins and the Yankees, like you did with the stats, if you look at the scheduling, it's not going to be an easy one for the Yankees. They got to face the Baltimore Orioles this week. Next series, Texas Rangers. They do get kind of that easy, somewhat easy road series against the Tampa Bay Rays. But then they go home, which gives them, makes them comfortable, but they got to face two teams that are in the wild card spot, wild card race, the Orioles and the Twins, which might be the defining moment to where who's going to be where in the playoffs. Well, in the wild card positioning, if it's still them two by that time. Then they got to face Toronto for a away series, and then they end their season against the Rays and the Toronto Blue Jays. So I think it's going to be a really difficult one to really set apart who's going to win the win the wild card, because all these
Yankees' schedule is playing these teams that want to get that wild card spot.
Not only that, they're playing against teams that are kind of, even though they're out of it divisionally. We got to, the Boston Red Sox, they're only 3 games ahead of the Yankees. So it could sway one way or another. And then, again, like you said, everybody's facing not only a division foe, but they're facing a division foe that is part of the wild card race. So we might see some heightened September baseball. Yes, and it's going to be really, really fun until next week, until everybody doesn't really care about baseball and turns their shift into the NFL, which
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, all right, ESPN, you show preseason football while there is an intense wild card game on, whatever. But I mean, that's got to do it for the top half of our podcast.
So let's wrap it up with
with thoughts. Yes.
Thoughts.
Phil,
so
I have to ask you. I have to ask you first. You're the AL guy. You know it more than I do. What's your thoughts?
I think the Yankees will stay in that top spot for that wild card spot. I think the Red Sox kind of remain at the AL East division leader. But for that second spot, I want to be hopeful and say the Royals.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they're pitching right now and the way they're hitting right now, it doesn't really, logically doesn't make sense for them to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say probably I have really no idea.
I think for me,
it's just really hard because all those teams are about the same.
Yeah, they're.
It's just who's going to get hot at the right time, because none of those teams have dominant pitching or dominant offenses.
Again, you say get hot at the right time. Royals in 2014, the Cardinals in 2011, the Boston. Even though it's a kind of a reversal, if a team gets cold in September, look at the Boston Red Sox in 2011.
Yep.
But for me, my thought about this, it's going to be hectic till the final day of the season. And I still feel confident that my teams that I picked earlier this season, the Baltimore Orioles and the Seattle Mariners, have a chance to get in. I mean, Baltimore Orioles 1.5, Seattle 2.5. So I think I still have to be confident with my picks. But then again, it's a crapshoot. You never know what's going to happen at really the end of the day and really the end of the season, where everything will matter. Phil, do you have any other things to say?
No.
All
no,
right.
That's really about. It's just that second wild card spot is going to be, like I said, who gets hot this last 3 weeks of the season.
I definitely have to agree with that. So that will do it for the top portion of the podcast. We'll be right back with the NL portion of the wild card, and of course, the second half of our name, the beers section of the podcast. So we'll be right back here with the MLBeers podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the second portion of the MLBeers podcast with your hosts, Andrew Sherman and Philip Corwin. Of course, we got to talk about the second part of our name here for the podcast, the beers portion of the podcast. So, Phil, what are you drinking today?
Well, in honor of Labor Day, I have Stone's Enjoy by Unfiltered IPA of 9/14/17.
Ooh, nice, nice.
So this is the 37th day. So it was brewed to be enjoyed within 37 days.
And is it enjoyable?
As always, yes. Stone just makes a really solid IPA. Can't argue with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good.
Mm-hmm.
It's hoppy. It's a double. It does come in a little over 9%, though.
So you're going to have a fun time afterwards.
Afterwards, I'm going to eat me some hot wings and call it a day.
Yeah, to celebrate Labor Day, right? And also, I have to say, you have it in a fancy tulip glass.
Oh, yeah. Always. You got to do it right.
Exactly, which I haven't had my tulip glass out in quite a while, which makes me happy inside because I am drinking Mother's Oktoberfest, which, comparing to the Bob's 47, is a little dry here and there. I feel, when I drink the 47 compared to the Mother's Oktoberfest, for some odd reason, it's a little bit dry. It can be a little bit dry at the end. But, I mean, it's overall a good seasonal beer from them. I mean, it's the same thing with Boulevard. I have not checked I know Sierra Nevada has their beers out.
Yes, they just released it last week, so it should be hitting our area this week.
Yeah, so that's going to be something that I will be looking forward to. And, the one thing, that I really enjoy about this season, about Oktoberfest, is, people coming together and just having a good time. It's, you kind of see it with, footage of Oktoberfest in Germany and other, beer gardens around the world, that it's, it's coming together. It's not like Christmas where it's a family thing, or like New Year's where it's like a worldwide thing. Oktoberfest is just something to celebrate as a community, and I kind of wish there was more beer gardens. Is that something that you want to see, Phil, is more beer gardens?
Yes and no. Like, the idea of a beer garden's fun, but I just enjoy sitting on the front porch or the yard drinking beers.
But that's how a beer garden feels, though. And
yeah, I know, but I don't want to pay for it.
True, unless you're owning it. Which
yeah,
maybe I should just start a beer garden at my house.
And so, in some of two of my worlds crossing, did you see what Adidas did for Oktoberfest?
No, I have not, and this should be a surprise with that. Let me get a window up real quick. You can go ahead and give kind of a summary.
So, Adidas has released a brand new pair of shoes. They're a lot like the Adidas classic, like Stan Smith look.
Oh, it was the first thing that came up.
But they're inspired by leather pants and lederhosen made famous in Germany with premium leather and other materials. But there's an invisible layer on top of the shoe known as DPBR coating.
Okay.
You ready for what it means?
Yes. Go ahead. I just found it, but go ahead.
Durable puke and beer repellent.
Yes.
And it'll only set you back about $240.
First of all, I just got it up. First of all, they look amazing. Cool. Yeah. The one thing I kind of wish they did, and this is just me and my tastes, is that for the stripes, I like the gold because it totally reminds me of golden beer, Munich styles.
Yep, and the lederhosen brown and all of that. and it says Prost on the side of it.
Mm-hmm. It's Prost.
Prost, whatever. I want a pair.
Okay, first of all, I like the picture that they have to show off the shoe, and this is where I get kind of mad at the design in a way, is that I know that it has something on the back, on the back of the shoe, where the gold is, and it has a little bit of an inlay in it, but it doesn't have a zoom in shot of the inlay, and I'm just like, okay, first of all, why don't you have... Okay, here we go. It looks like on the...
Oh yeah, no, I pulled it up. And it has like a
Ooh, I kind of like it.
I don't know what kind of
So
design
it's-
that is,
it's
but
a-
it's a white inlay stitched into the back of it.
Yeah, kind of like they do with Lederhosen, where it has the decorative stitching on
Yep.
it. Okay, so now I'm kind of mad at the stripes. What they should have done, for me at least, is that they should keep the larger and the smaller stripe the gold color, but the middle stripe being the Bavarian blue and white diamond across it.
Yeah, but at least this way,
They save
It's
time and money with that, and it's cohesive. Yeah. But
no, regardless, awesome shoe.
they
And
are,
I just want a pair.
and for people that don't know, I am a big Nike guy, and I don't have like Nikes or Adidas. I automatically go for Nikes. I've just had better stuff with Nikes than Adidas, but this might be...
Nikes are terrible shoes.
This might be the I guess the nail in the coffin to get me some kick-ass Adidas shoes. And especially
Can't tell you, Nikes are terrible shoes though. They're not good for you.
Yeah, there's some like the low dunk shoes that are, kind of like these the original Adidas. They're pretty good. Every other ones are a bit narrow. But I mean, it's Nike. It's America. You gotta wear it for America.
No, you should wear Asics.
Because they're America. And
No, they're made in Vietnam.
Oh, I was gonna say,
And
Nikes are made in China.
Nikes are made in Vietnam as well.
Yeah, well, they're made everywhere in, slave labor camps, as they like to say. But that's pretty cool. I mean, who would have thunk it, right? Who would have thunk it that there would be some type of company supporting
Oktoberfest.
Yeah, really supporting Oktoberfest. But for me, it doesn't come as a surprise for Adidas to...
No, because they're a German company.
They are a German company. And another cool thing, real quick, not necessarily about Adidas, but it still concerns about Oktoberfest, is that every year in the Bundesliga, which is the German soccer league, they make Bayern Munich play at home the day before the last day of Oktoberfest. And so, like, every year, if they win, the next day they go win or lose, they go party. But, like, every year, if Bayern Munich wins, there's always a big, they always have photos of them, drinking really big beer steins and all that stuff. So, I mean, great shoes, great beer. I mean, the Sierra Nevada, I can't wait for that one. But definitely, I'm totally in the spirit of Oktoberfest and I guess a communal style event than pumpkin beer and Halloween. So.
Yes.
So anyway.
This is Halloween.
Oh, God. No.
Didn't we play that song in band?
Yes. Because we actually played on Halloween.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, we had a Halloween game and we played that goddamn song.
We also played Thriller 2, I believe. Like a small version of Thriller or whatever.
Yes, we did. I danced at it with the freaking cheerleaders.
Yeah, because wasn't it the senior dance?
Yeah, it was senior night.
Yeah.
And like all the seniors in band did the choreographed dance to Thriller at halftime as the band played.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool. But my senior song was Jungle Boogie. So,
Ooh, that'd be fun though.
So while everybody remember the dance that like everybody like put their instrument down and did the whole dance move. So like the seniors got in front of the band and I was in the middle because it has a tuba solo in the middle of it where everybody's doing the dance. So like everybody's dancing while I'm doing the tuba solo. So
well, that was awesome.
Yeah, so I'm just that cool. I'm just that cool. But anyway, speaking of beer, we're done with the segment, but there's two teams that were part of the Great Beer expansion in baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers and the St. Louis Cardinals, part of the somewhat not exciting as the AL wild card, but still intense as ever with the National League wild card. So let's go from top to bottom real quick. The guys that are, in contention in the top two teams, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks on the top with 79-58 with a 6.5 games ahead of the Colorado Rockies that are 72-64, which they take the second wild card spot. Then, of course, we bring up the Milwaukee Brewers that are 72-65, only a half game back. The St. Louis Cardinals are 69-67 with 3 games back. And, of course, the team that we were really surprised a couple weeks back making moves into the wild card race, the Miami Marlins, 67-69.
And it's not to say that they won't do it, but they're kind of the outlier of this group.
Yeah, and let me say this real quick, that they're 5 games back from the Colorado Rockies. But
and they're 4-6 their last 10.
They were definitely a team that we did not, I had them third, but they were not going to reach the playoffs. But
no,
now,
I didn't have them reaching the playoffs. I think I had them third. Yeah, I think I had them third in the division because they have good offense, but their pitching was what really kind of scared us, I guess, away from them. And in their last 14 days, they're 10th in the NL in pitching.
Hold on one second. We didn't talk about their September call-ups yet, which, of course, is kind of a big deal. So anyway, with the just real quick, the Miami Marlins bring up third baseman Brian Anderson and left-handed pitcher Dylan Peters, which are 3 and 4 in the top 30 organizational prospects list by MLB.com, and then they bring in right-hand pitcher Javi Guerrera. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they bring up right-handed pitcher Brandon Woodruff and outfielder Brett Phillips, which are 4 and 12 respectively on their top 30 organizational list, and right-handed pitcher Taylor Williams. For the St. Louis Cardinals, they bring up right-handing pitcher Jack Flaherty and Sandy Alcantara, which are 3 and 9 respectively on their top 30 organizational lists, and second baseman Alex Mejia for the St. Louis Cardinals. And to round out the last two teams, we have the Arizona Diamondbacks bringing in their 15th of the top 30 prospect right-handed pitcher Jimmy Sherfree. And then they bring in catcher John Ryan Murphy and right-handed pitcher Savino Broncho, if I'm saying that correctly. For the Colorado Rockies, they bring in number 3 infielder Ryan McMahon and number 9 Tom Murphy. And I have to say real quick, looking at these numbers, they're really good, but the best guy, overall has to probably be Ryan McMahon out of the Colorado Rockies, which might be a good thing because if you remember correctly, they do have a little bit of injury trouble So anyway, even though we're just ended with the Rockies, we're talking about the Miami Marlins. Go right on ahead, Phil.
And with their pitching right now, they're 10th best in the NL the last 14 days. And the only team that's in the playoff hunt that's worse than them is the Rockies right now. The Marlins are coming in with a 4.61 ERA, a 4.47 FIP, a 139 whip, and a 763 K per nine. Their average is a 252, and their BABIP is a 293.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, we take a look at what they're doing hitting wise, and this is what's kind of keeping them afloat. They're number 6 in the NL the last 14 days. They got a 255 average, 325 on base, 440 slugging, a 768 OPS, 299 BABIP, and a 101 WRC plus.
And now everything wants to work on me right when it gets to me. So anyway, with the Miami Marlins real quick, let's get back to the hitting real quick. And, they have good hitters. I mean, Christian Yelich has a 351 batting average. Marcell Ozuna with a 315. D. Gordon with a 396.
We talked about Stanton at the beginning of the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, that was another thing, too. Stanton is doing real well also. I mean, batting average-wise, not the greatest, but he's producing. He has a 167 WRC plus, and then you have Marcell Ozuna with a 169 and Christian Yelich being at a 178. And that's really how the Marlins have been. Like you already talked about how they have a really good offense and a not really that great of pitching. I mean, it was kind of the thing that they were going for earlier in the season. They weren't going to buy a lot of people with starting pitching. They just went for the bullpen, and it's here or there with the bullpen and really here and there with the starting pitching. The only good pitching is Ode Rismira, if I'm saying this correctly. Ode Rismira to Spain. If you saw it, you would be kind of questioning what the hell his name was too. But anyway, he had a 2.84 ERA. Everybody else has a 4+ ERA. So, I mean, you got to look at the schedule, and really, it's hit or miss. They got to face Washington the rest of the for this week. Then they go play against Atlanta, then the Phillies, then Milwaukee, go and then play against the Mets. Then they're on a 6-game road trip against the top 2 of the wild card, the Diamondbacks and the Rockies. And then they end the season at home against the Braves.
So if they're going to do it, they got to win the series against the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Brewers.
Yeah. That's
if the Diamondbacks, Rockies, and Brewers lose more games than they win.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
I've never felt like I sounded like John Madden until right then.
There you go. I mean,
you got to score points to win the game, guys.
I mean, it's I believe
it's
I
true,
was
though.
talking to somebody about the playoffs, and I was like, I definitely feel like I'm Jim Mora. Playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I felt about that. But I mean, I think it will be a difficult road. Even though they do have some easy games here or there, it doesn't really help them facing. They don't have enough games against wild card teams to really propel themselves forward.
And that's what I mean by they got to win the series against those 3 wild card teams they play.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got to get a little bit of baseball luck and go from there.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, we're looking at the next team, right? The Cardinals?
Yes, we are looking at the Cardinals, which they are 3.5 games back, if I'm correct.
You are. And the last 14 days, their pitching is 4th in the NL right now. They're coming in with an 829 K per 9, 250 average, a 298 BABIP, a 399 ERA, a 410 FIP, and a 130 WHIP.
Mm-hmm.
But then we take a look and see how they're doing offensively. Offensively, they're right there too. 3rd in the NL in the last 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
At least by WAR standard, 2.3 WAR.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in with a 251 average, 333 on base, 461 slugging, 794 OPS, a 286 BABIP, and a 107 WRC plus.
Mm-hmm.
They're only striking out 21.3% of the times as well.
Mm-hmm. And you bring up really who's the better of the two when it comes to either the batting or the pitching, and I have to say the pitching, and not only that I'm a big fan of the Cardinals, I pay attention to them, but it's really has shown. I mean, even for the young guys, I bring up Jack Flaherty, which he was just called up recently, and Luke Weaver, which he's just been called up 2 weeks back. But you could really see the difference. Luke Weaver right now has a 1.83 ERA, a 2.22 FIP, and a .97 WHIP. His ground ball rate is a 52.3, which that's a good thing, even though we've had shoddy defense here and there this year and a bit of last year. But his left on base percentage is a 93%. His opponent batting average is a 205. His opponent BABIP is a 310. Hell, his K rate is a 13.27. But you got to look at the other guys too. You have Lance Lynn and Carlos Martinez, veterans of this team, having a 2.57 ERA and a 2.84 respectively. Michael Wacha, he's been better, I should say, but hasn't done much since. Mike, there's actually
But that's an improvement of Michael Wacha from the last 2 years, though.
Yes, because not only that he was part of injuries, which has really derailed his development as a starting pitcher, but he has turned into a 4-5/6, bullpen guy. And
when it comes playoff time, though, if they make the playoffs, that's the kind of guy you want, though.
Yes.
You want a sinker ball pitcher who could come in especially in the NL, in the playoffs. A guy that could come in that fourth or fifth inning who could stretch you out for 3 innings.
Mm-hmm.
He could bridge the gap between the fourth and seventh inning for you guys.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And he's a sinker ball pitcher, a lot of ground ball outs, ground ball double plays. He keeps the ball on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And in the playoffs, that's what you need from a guy like him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the difference maker, because if you really look at the hitting side of it all, Tommy Pham, he was in and out of being in the 25-man roster for a couple years, but now he's planted himself as an everyday starter, either at right field or center or even left. And he's been really the best guy that has the plate appearances for them. He's hitting he's hitting a 324, 477, 676 slash line with a 1.154 OPS, and he has a 199 WRC plus. And Yadier Molina, he's doing well. Jed Jerko, even though he's injured right now, through his 18 at-bats, he's done well. Jose Martinez has done well. But if you keep on, like, Yadier Molina and Tommy Pham have high at-bat numbers, which is great. So what you have with those numbers are pretty solid. Jed Jerko, Jose Martinez, 18 to 19 at-bats. I mean, could we see more of them? There should be more of them. Maybe, maybe not. But then once you get to the guys that have higher at-bats, Colton Wong, Stephen Piscotty, Randall Grichuk, Dexter Fowler, guys that have 30-plus at-bats, they're not producing like Yadier Molina or Tommy Pham. All of them just barely over 150. Hell, even Randall Grichuk is hitting 182. And that's where it becomes kind of questionable to see where these guys are going to be going. And that's why you have great moments with Tommy Pham. He's hitting home runs, he's getting those RBIs, but you're not seeing a lot of production out of the other guys. But then again, it's all about getting on base, and most of these guys can get on base without hitting the ball. So that's where it becomes, it becomes iffy at most. But this, for the schedule though, is it really nice for the St. Louis Cardinals? I think so. Earlier, I believe a podcast or 2 podcasts ago, they still have a difficult schedule. A lot of division. I mean, it's division. It's all division games from the 8th to the end of the season, and they face San Diego, which they had problems with them last week. They took care of San Francisco, but they got to face Pittsburgh, which is a team that is slowly rising up into the conversation of being in the wild card. Cincinnati is the only cupcake, team that they face twice, but then they got to face Chicago, which has been a team that has really hounded them the past 3 years, getting the good talent and everything else. And then Milwaukee has been, it's been 50-50 with the Milwaukee games. So it's still up in the air. They have a better chance of possibly getting in and helping themselves probably maybe to get a division title, but that's unrealistic to what's going on. Just real quick, I think they're 7.5 games back in the regular season standings. So they're 6 games back from the regular season standings. For the National League Central, which is a possibility where they could do it, but I think they just got to go for the wild card, and they just got to pounce on what they have right in front of them.
Yeah, and if that means beating the Brewers and coming up on that next spot, because the Brewers are only a half game back of the Colorado Rockies right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if the Cardinals can take 2 or 3 or 2 or 4, whatever the series is from them, they're just going to work their way up.
Well, see, that's the one thing. That's later in the season, so they just have to win. So I mean, that's all I got with the Cardinals.
So let's look at that next team, the Brewers, who are surprisingly only a half game back from Colorado. It looked like not even a month ago, 2 weeks ago, it looked like Arizona and Colorado just had this NL wild card wrapped up.
Planted the flag on the wild card, the National League wild card mountain.
But what's happened is the Brewers have continued to play their type of baseball this season, and they are 6-4 the last 10, as the Rockies are 4-6.
Mm-hmm.
The Brewers are getting good pitching this so far this last 14 days. 4.04 ERA, 4.33 FIP, 1.36 WHIP, 8.38 K per 9. Their left on base is at even 75%, and their BABIP is a 298. And then we take a look at what they're doing hitting-wise, and this is where the Brewers have remained to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
They're 14th in the NL in the last 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
222 average, 279 on base, 358 slugging, 637 OPS, 280 BABIP, and a 62 WRC plus, which is the worst in the NL right now.
Mm-hmm. And looking at that, it's kind of I keep on bringing a tale of two cities, but tales of two pitching. But it's really, for the Brew Crew, it's tales of two hittings. And I know that doesn't sound grammatically correct, but if you look at the numbers, you have the top 6 guys by WAR hitting 300 and above. And they have substantial at-bats, not just, piddly 4, 6, whatever. They got 20 plus. But those guys are hitting 300 plus. The other guys that are hitting just above 10, Manny Pena has 14, Ryan Braun has 38, but those guys are hitting 143, 232, 129. Really, really low numbers, especially Ryan Braun, a guy that, we've counted out the past couple of years, hitting 158. And so,
but in their last 10, who have they played though? Because they're 6-4.
Yeah, they've played. Once I get that up, they've played the Washington Nationals, which they just completed. They played a 2-game stint against the Cardinals, and they won the series against the Dodgers. Let me get the Washington.
So they're not playing terrible teams right now.
Yeah,
but yet they're walking away with wins.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if, for argument's sake, if the Brewers can raise their 14th place in the NL to 14 up to the top 10, because the Dodgers are 10th right now in the last 14 days.
Mm-hmm.
what's not to say that they can't overtake the Rockies, because the Rockies pitching is worse than the Brewers right now.
Mm-hmm. And just to, really, if you look at the Brewers and try to, really just look at their numbers, they are just so much better at that category, because Zach Davies has really been the guy, and Jimmy Nelson has been really those two guys that have really came out of the woodwork and really helped this team. A .9 ERA for Zach Davies. Jimmy Nelson has a 2.41. Brandon Woodruff, a guy that I just talked about how he came up, for call-ups. He pitched one game, 7 innings, a 1.29 ERA. I know that isn't much, but it just shows that they do have a guy ready to go from, in the minors to really show what's really going to happen in these, in this last month that could propel them over the Rockies. And with their schedule, it's they already faced Washington. They got to face Cincinnati, another cupcake. They got to face two good teams with the Cubs and the Pirates. They got to face Miami. They got to face the Pirates again. Then they finish the season at home with the Chicago Cubs and the Cincinnati Reds, and then they play against the Cardinals, if I can actually talk, for the final part of the season. So there's multiple layers here where they're facing not only their division foe, but also their wild card counterparts. And I think that's where it's going to be kind of tricky, because it's going to come down to the nitty-gritty. But then seeing Brandon Woodruff with that nice 7-inning, 1.29 ERA game shows that they have a guy in the wing that they just been sitting on in AAA, ready to shine in the September lights and probably push them into the playoffs.
Yeah. So it's just Brewers just got to improve offensively.
Yeah, because again,
because you listed all those guys that are not even hitting 200 in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, top 6 guys through WAR are hitting 300 plus. The last 6 guys, which is kind of funny in a way, are hitting under 240.
Yeah, so, and their WAR as a team right now offensively is a negative .7.
Yes, and it definitely shows.
It does. But somehow they've managed to win the last 6 out of 10. So if they can just manage their way, and the Rockies continue to pitch the way they're pitching, and they're hitting obviously better than the Brewers, but if we look at the team right now, the Rockies, they're pitching right now 7.9 K per 9, 4.64 ERA, 4.40 FIP, and a 1.39 WHIP with a 2.60 average and a 3.04 batting average of balls in play.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but on the flip side, they are 5 spots above the Brewers in the last 14 days hitting, but their average is not that much better with a 234, 315 on base, 380 slugging, 695 OPS, and a 68 WRC plus.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it kind of shows with, I mean, really, you have your typical guys, Justin Blackman doing well. You also have DJ LeMahieu doing well. I mean, 383 and 333 respectively. Then you have Nolan Arenado, a guy that you really expect to do well, isn't doing what he should be doing. A 205 batting average, 286 on base percentage, a 432 slugging percentage. Just these guys aren't doing what they're really supposed to do, and it's really, coming to a head because, again, there's only 3 guys in the batting spot hitting 300 above, and also that's Gerardo Parra, but he's not producing. He only has a 57 weighted runs created plus. But on the pitching side, it doesn't even look better. You have John Gray being the only guy that can pitch with a 2.55 ERA, 2.91 FIP, and a 1.25 WHIP. And that's going to be, and again, that's going to be the difference maker when you only have one guy doing well and then everybody else has an ERA of 4+. And it's not going to do well. And also, you have to remember, too, it comes down to the bullpen. And those guys aren't even – there's some guys that are doing well. Jake McGee, he's doing his thing. Zach Rosscup is doing his thing. But that guy has only pitched 2/3 of an inning. But then everybody else that are big names, Carlos Estevez, Mike Dunn, Greg Holland, those guys have an ERA of 7+. And Greg Holland, I just have to point out, the great reliever that he was, the great closer that he was a couple years back, isn't anymore with 11.25 ERA. There is something going on in Rockies, with the Rockies, and it has to change soon. And if it's not, then we're going to see probably another good Rockies team that just couldn't get it done near the end of the season.
Yes. Do you want me to update you on the Cubs, what they just did?
Yeah, go right on ahead. I'm about to get the schedule up for the Colorado Rockies.
All right, so the Cubs are set to select the contract of Taylor Davies and will designate minor league outfielder Jacob Hanneman for assignment.
Okay.
Davies is a catcher in 406 plate appearances in AAA Iowa. Has hit 297, 357, 429 with 6 home runs, 27 doubles, and a triple.
Mm-hmm.
And he also plays first base. He has 800 innings at first base, 200 innings at third base as well.
Not bad.
No. So he offers catcher, third, and first base in September call-up in an NL team. So,
especially at the catcher position for the Cubs, but we're not here talking about the Cubs. We're here about to talk about the wild card. And
what's the Rockies schedule look like?
The Rockies schedule, they lost 3 straight against the Diamondbacks, which does not help their case of getting into the playoffs. But the
Diamondbacks have won 10 straight.
Yeah, but still, if you're trying to get into the playoffs, you got to at least win
you got to beat good teams.
Yeah. They face the Giants for a 3-game stint at home. Then they're on a 8-game stint against the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Then they go play the Padres at home. Then they go on a 6-game stint against two games against the Giants, and then 4 games against the Padres. And to round out the season, they've played 3 games at home against the Marlins and 3 games home against the Dodgers. So this, I thought it was
that's a tough road.
That is a tough, especially interdivision and wild card implications. I mean, the division this year hasn't been great as a whole because, of course, there's that big split between the Padres and Giants and the other 3 teams. But this does not help the Rockies with what's going on with them so far.
No, not at all. That's going to be a really tough road ahead. But keep in mind, they only got to keep better than the Brewers. And that's the glory of having a second wildcard spot now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that they don't have to fight for that division lead.
Even though it is better to win the division than get the wild card.
But if you want to bring back a 1-game wild card to Coors Field, that would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I think it would be interesting to see that, but I mean it's up in the air, and you got to talk about the Diamondbacks though, because they're to the top spot,
Yeah, but looking at them as a team right now, the last 14 days with their 10-game winning streak, they're number 2 in hitting and pitching. They have a 2-point WAR for offensively and a 20-point WAR pitching wise. Their ERA is a 3.63. Their FIP is a 4.78. Their WHIP is a 1.27. They're striking out 9.26 per 9. Their opponent average is a 2.37 with a 2.95 BABIP. And you take what they're doing offensively. Offensively, they're striking out the second highest with a 23%. but they're coming in with a 259 average, 336 on base, 473 slugging, 810 OPS, a 215 ISO, highest right now, and a 297 BABIP and a 103 WRC plus.
Wow.
Yeah, that 215 ISO is ridiculous.
Yes, most definitely. If you're wanting to get extra bases, and it, with all those numbers that you said, it reflects how they got this 10-game winning streak. They won the last game against the against the Mets on August 24th. Then they swept the Giants at home. Then they swept the Dodgers at home, and with impressive numbers in a sense of how much they scored. 7 in the first game, 6 in the second, and 8 in the third game. And then they swept the Colorado Rockies. And again, impressive numbers, all above 4 runs. They won 9-5 against the Colorado Rockies first game, second game 6-2, and then the third game 5-1. But is this something that the Diamondbacks have to worry about at the end of the season? And they face the Dodgers this week, and then they go home and face the Padres and the Rockies. So there's that little gap between good and bad. So you kind of get to rest and then actually get to play against the team that you're really fighting for the wild card. Then they get to relax again against the Giants and against the Padres from the 15th through the 20th. And then it's 3 games at home against the Marlins, and then 3 games at home against the Giants, and of course they round out the season against the Royals. So what does this mean? I think they might hold on to this with a lot of those easy teams, a lot of games with the easy teams, 2 games if I can tell, 2 series against the Padres and 2 series against the Giants. I think it kind of gives it, a little bit of relief for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and especially with the Miami Marlins, how they've been doing so well for right now, but I don't think they just haven't, really the Miami Marlins haven't shown up with pitching, and that's going to be the difference maker. So to be honest with you, the Arizona Diamondbacks might be a lock.
At this point, I think they are. The way they've hit the last 2 weeks, it would have to take something pretty dramatic fall off, much like the 2011 Red Sox.
Yes, I do agree with that.
I think that's what it would have to take for them not to get that wild card spot.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, again, it's just really hard to see something like that to happen with what's been going on with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and playing against 3 games against the Royals, not 2. Just seeing that they have these quote unquote breaks against better teams, enough of them to really probably supplant them as the first or second wild card team. So Phil, I got to ask, what are your thoughts about this NL wild card race?
I'm going to do a little bit of a hot take, and it's going to go the Diamondbacks and the Brewers.
Okay. Nothing that we had in the in our predictions.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, because my predictions are definitely.
Well, we had
gone.
the Giants. We had the Giants actually being able to play real baseball.
Yeah, and then I had the Cardinals, which are a team that.
Hey, the Cardinals aren't too far out of it, but I think the Brewers make a mid-September surge,
and
the Rockies just kind of falter from here on out.
That's understandable. And, my thoughts about this is that it's going to be interesting, again, down the road to the very end. As always, kind of like last year, how it came down to the last game of the season if the Cardinals were going to make it to the playoffs or not. I think the one big thing that's going to be different about this is if Arizona keeps the way that they're playing, it's could we see that the Dodgers, I mean, it's out in left field because I mean right now if you look at the numbers, Dodgers have 92 wins, Arizona has 79.
79.
Is it possible that the Dodgers, the way that they're playing, they're 2 out of the last 8, I mean 2 out of the last 10, take over the West Division?
No, because that means the Dodgers would have to win right now 14 games.
They're they've lost the last 3. And I just don't see it either, but it's just that weird craziness that
it would be interesting. It would be crazy if that were to happen, but I think the Dodgers, even if they play bad baseball right now, maintain the division lead.
And you're right. You're right about that. I like my imagination.
If they keep playing bad baseball, then they'll lose that first series in October as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If they can't get out of it, they played this good of baseball all year, and all of a sudden this is what's happening, then that first NLDS is just over. Yeah. Whatever team they play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, I have to say for my hot take, Arizona Diamondbacks being the number 1 wild card team, and I definitely have to say that the St. Louis Cardinals will be my second, but barely. Like I said earlier this season, the only way they're going to get into the playoffs is going to be by the wild card and barely making it. And it was 86 wins last year that the Cardinals had and didn't make it. Now it's got to be 86 wins this season, and they'll make it by, literally a thread in a sense.
Well, hey, we're going to have some good September baseball.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one hell of a ride, of course.
Well, it's like the Royals in 2013, kind of the same situation with the Cardinals of last year. They needed to win, I think, the last 3 or 4 game series.
Mm-hmm.
And they're 1 game from not making the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been the difference maker for the team. So I think that's going to do it here for us, folks, for the MLBeers podcast. Phil, how did you feel about today? I felt pretty good. Yeah, I felt pretty good about it.
It was good.
It's good. We're just going to keep on going higher in pitch, right? It's good.
Yeah. I'll get my son in here. He hasn't hit puberty yet. He can go higher than us.
Oh no. Let's not. Let's say we did. Right? So anyway, if you're listening to us on our website or on iTunes, we are also on SoundCloud and TuneIn. If you didn't hear it before, if you did or didn't hear it before our podcast started, we are part of the Tangent Bound Network, which has a multitude of genres of podcasts that are enjoyable. I know Phil has a podcast, the Salty Language Podcast.
Yes,
is on the Tangent Bound Network.
I did get those boys to talk about the home run spike in the MLB.
Nice.
Yeah, so if you want to tune into them and if you like baseball, at least catch that one segment. If not, listen to their whole show. It's always good for a good laugh. I'm still. I know that you were a guest of the Couch Coach Live. I'm still waiting for that. And other guest spots with our podcast. If you want to contact us, we have an email at majorleaguebeers@gmail.com. We also have Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, all underneath the MLBeers podcast banner, and especially Tapped In. I always want to say something else. My phone's dead, so I can't even check in the beers we had. Yeah, come on, Phil, come on. I'm just messing with you. But we're also on Tapped In, so you can always see Untapped. Yeah, see, Tapped In, Untapped. See, it's something. I'll just call it Tap Ins. We're on Tap Ins now. Anyway, you'll get to see what beers we're drinking. I mean, we also have personal profiles too, which we'll probably give out sooner or later. I don't remember mine, and I don't want to check at the moment. But we also, if you want to contact us individually, I have a Twitter at RealAWS13, and Phil, what is yours? At Philco816.
Alrighty, folks, so that get ready to put on your seatbelts because it's going to be one hell of a ride for the last month of the baseball season. So again, that will do it here for us on the MLBeers podcast. Our motto, our creed, our saying, win or lose, there is always booze.